So for tonight, I'm just going to be sketching some motorcycles here. Looks like it's 1.5 wheels between the front and the back there, just to establish some proportion. Got the seat right here, not that low. Establish those big proportions first. This should be a little back right there. Just had a request from some students for tips on sketching motorcycles. So I haven't sketched some motorcycles in a while, so I'm just going to warm up by sketching some motorcycles here. Though this one looks to be some sort of futuristic design with that empty wheel back there, but it is pretty cool. Just zoom in on that as I just put some ink to it. This is just general warm-up, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Establishing the proportions is more important as I do this, but also that while I'm doing this to practice for some teaching, I'm also doing this for myself for fun, because if I'm not having fun, it's going to be boring for me. It's going to be, and if it's boring for me, it's probably going to be more boring for anyone watching. But if I'm enjoying myself, then it is more likely that some of the people watching might enjoy themselves too. Okay. And so just some basic shape for a motorcycle right there. We can see the reference up here that I just grabbed from somewhere online, and now I'm actually going to go back and find some more, because this hubless bicycle. Well, let me open that up to see if it's real or not. This is the this is the Livewire. This is the Harley 2019 version of it, so it's not the final one, that the final Harley Davidson Livewire that they did. So we can go over there and search Harley Davidson Livewire and find some images of the actual electric motorcycle they released. So let's look for a side view of that right here. Just view that file. Right, so it ended up quite different than the concept where I sketched first right here. So let's try this again with the Harley Davidson Livewire, and this time we will try it with the actual production model. What didn't change from the production model to the prototype is, or from the prototype to the production model, is that proportion of the length of between the two wheels. It's stayed at about 1.5 wheels between there. And so just establishing the big form right here. So this is like where the battery seems to be. You know, there's no gas tank, but it still has the cowling like a gas tank, because people are used to that. The headlamp area right here, which then goes down into the fork. Space for the seat back here, and then of course all the connection points to the wheel in the back right there. Still needs a chain to drive this thing, even with the electric motor there, because it's not perfectly on the motorcycle there. And even some little spring connections for shock absorption and whatnot. Alright, so again, difference between a concept and a production right there. How much detail do I want to put on this thing? I'm looking for some big shapes in here. Oversimplify them at first. Alright, so let's even label this, right? Harley Davidson Livewire production versus the right above it, the Harley Davidson Livewire concept. Is the concept better than the production? I mean, I like the form, how simple it is, but is it better than, I like the simplicity of the form from the side view, but the production has its own merits. So let's take this and look at this thing from some different views here. So we got this one here. Oh, this one here is a little bit better. So let's look at this one. I got that, and there with that reference, right? Starting with this box. Right, from a side view, we're going to do that. Let's do a little sketch down here too. Right, we got that box right there. We got the seat up here. Something like that. And we got even some round piece down here. That we got the headlamp right here going into the fork. So now perspective is important. This does look like all these are going to the same vanishing point for the wheels right here. We got the seat going back, not straight back. With a little bit of an angle there. And should have a wheel back here somewhere on that minor axis, so a wheel right there. So let's do the wheels actually in 2D first. Something like this, and like that. About 1.5 between them. So let's do it in 3D. Rotate that a little bit and sketch that wheel in there. Some thickness to it. A little too thick for this motorcycle. Too big. Too much of an angle there. So my minor axis is here. Be a little narrower. I messed up that first time. Ooh, still very off. Okay, well, let's come back and try that again since I'm messing up so much on that first one. For the back here, let's actually sketch out the box that it should fit in. And now that should end up a bit better. Oh yeah. Better than the last one. So what I'm going to do about this, let that dry and maybe come back and revisit it. Again, so our basic shapes here were the main body box. This. That. Those are the main proportions in 2D. So let's draw all those things again in 3D. You can always go around and change the proportion and the smaller details about them later on. As long as the perspective is pretty good and the proportions are all right, that is where we want to be right now as we sketch this thing. I think a few guesses there. Let's come back and revisit this front wheel here. With the box. So I think when I start off my next one, we'll start off with the tire first. So that looks better there. Move that over. Alright, we're looking a little better with that. Yeah, so my super simple shape, so now I can start to play with that, and I know that I need to work on my proportion there. let's try that again from a different view. Front view right here. It's somewhat similar, but still different. And like I said, this time I want to focus on that perspective. Ooh. Focus on that perspective as I lay it down. So it's actually the tire here in the center. But this one here is right there. So we have the tire from perspective pretty shallow, so it's almost like a horizontal line, almost a horizontal line. Again, that box in there just comes a little higher than the wheels. Body cowling right there into the seat, which does actually come straight back a little bit. And the seat rises up also just a little. And then that front, again, headlamp right here. But pretty much in this one, everything is 2D. And I extrude it out to bring the 3D-ness to it. So I'll just do like another ellipse right here. It's a little thinner, another one over here. For the side there, so now we can more quickly get that round tire feeling there. Not having to do as many ellipses. And then we do this right here. To the cowling right there. Put just a little thickness on that. There. And there. A little thickness right there as well. And even here as well. Radial components are now starting to block other components as I do in the motorcycle back here. So just building up to a more and more complex drawing rather than trying to start with something super complex at first. A little bit of thickness there. Good evening. Hello. Hello, Welber Trindade? I'm sorry if I'm saying that incorrectly. And hello to Sprite. I hope you're doing well this evening. And I hope you're interested in joining in sketching motorcycles. Maybe even you know how to ride a motorcycle and you can teach me. So if you're just joining, just sketching some motorcycles for fun and for practice and warm up. How long I've been live? It says 22 minutes. And in 22 minutes, I've managed to do about this much. Started with a simple side view. Realized I was sketching the Harley Davidson Livewire, and it was a concept bike, so I looked for the real one, and I sketched it in 3D, keeping it pretty simple. And now I'm sketching in 3D again, and adding a bit more detail every time that I sketch it. Taking some notes from my sketches, and that's perfectly fine to be taking notes from the sketches. Any of you have any questions as I'm sketching? And I won't, I'm looking down at my paper and sketching, but if you have any questions that come up, do ask them, and I will definitely be able to get to them, because right now it seems like it's just the three of us. So I'm actually doing this in preparation for teaching about sketching motorcycles, or giving some tips. So the thing that I do when I am trying to get better at something is just to go do it. So I am sketching some motorcycles here so I can realize what are the tips that I want to give my students. In particular, right, instead of I don't know however long this live stream is going to go on for, but I imagine 1 hour, so another 30 minutes, or possibly up to 2 hours. I don't anticipate 2 hours, because I do want to go to bed somewhat earlier tonight. But anyway, just whatever I can get done in that time, and so whatever questions you have, I'll try and answer them, because it'll help me figure out what questions some of my students might have in the very, very near future. Alright, so here's another quick 3D sketch. Let's go find another reference here from a slightly different angle. Maybe one of these back angles of the motorcycle. We got this one here, just up in the corner right here. Looking at reference, so I don't have to make something up, because I just want to study the form. Oh, maybe I'll have to take one of those earlier rear view angles. Some of these new ones I'm looking at here are a little too extreme. Yeah, let's go back. No. I think this was the one we saw earlier, so let's look at that. So now we got that reference there, and again, just like I've been doing, well, having a tough time with this marker here, so let's just grab a different one. From a back view here, small little thing right there. Front tire. That large. And we can do this without doing this construction, but I just earlier I messed up on some of my ellipses, and I'd rather just take the extra time to plot it out than to just keep messing up. It's only a little extra time, but it's worth it to feel more confident about the perspective that I'm doing. Where do you teach? Is it at some art school, or do you just teach online? I teach in two places. I teach at Kazone, which does have some art things you can do online, and I teach at Art Center College of Design in Pasadena, California. I struggle a lot with proportion and measurement. Would you have any tips on that? Tips on proportion and measurement. Yes. Put some things down on paper, and it's okay if you mess up, which doesn't seem to be a lot, but literally seeing on paper is going to help you out, right? So in my earlier sketches here, right, as I'm very loose with this as I'm doing it right now, because I'm trying to understand the general proportions of it than like specific, very precise ones. But I'm saying, okay, right, what is the height of this compared to the length of this? Like for this motorcycle, I've looked at the motorcycle here and said between the two tires, there's 1.5 tires in between there. So that's why I was like doing this construction right here, because here's one tire, here's the front one, here's a tire in between it, and then a half. So now the tire spacing is about correct. This block of battery in the middle of them, block and engine in the middle, is very close to the two of them, so I can just roughly fill that in there for the space, and it is higher than the two wheels, so we're going to actually make it go a little higher right there. We could sit there and actually measure what the distance is, but in terms of just wanting to kind of sketch fast, I'm okay not getting a perfectly correct perspective and just playing around a little bit with it. So we got this right here. Right, and each time I sketch it, it's just an additional time for me to kind of sort of study those proportions, right? Back to where I start versus where I end up. It doesn't matter where you start, right? What matters is where you end up. So if you keep sketching, you're going to get better and better each time. And that's what I'm searching for as I do this. And like so small things here is like, oh, now I see it from this back angle, I can see that headlamp is just a little bit higher than the body right there. And I already had that before, but on this one I was missing it, and it's just drilling it a little bit more into my head that's what that proportion is. So drawing things from different views also helps me to study those proportions, because what I'll understand from one angle, I'll realize from another is something different. Now just giving a little thickness here. What age did I start drawing? I've been drawing forever. When I was like as small as I could. My mom still has drawings from when I was like 2 years old or something hung up in the house whenever I go home. So I have been drawing forever. So it's something that I grew up enjoying doing, which made it very easy to practice, right? So it's very tempting to say, oh, so and so is a natural at it, and it's like, no one's really a natural at it. It's just that you enjoy it, so you practice it a lot. So if you didn't start drawing when you were 2 years old, don't worry about it, because the drawings that I was doing from when I was 2 until I was like all the way even past like starting college were terrible, right? What I did get, oh hey, great follow-up question, right? Which was your question about the when did I start taking it seriously. I started taking it seriously in college. I actually went to a college and dropped out of it when I realized I could go and be a designer and get paid to draw. So even though I was sketching all the way from as young as 2, I didn't start taking it seriously until I was like 20. So well after I started college the first time. I had to drop out and go start kind of all over again. So like the style that I'm sketching right now is actually something I started more when I was like 20. that said what all that sketching when I was younger probably helped me out with was that I was just fairly confident with my hand-eye coordination, right? And it's not a natural thing, it's just a practice thing, right? So I had a lot of practice to do that. And if you're just starting when you're 20, when you're 16, whatever age you are, when you're 40, when you're 50, right, to do it, it's just gonna, you got to put that time in that practice. That's all. And depending what age you start and how serious you are, you can, like putting some focus and intention into that sketching, you could potentially improve really, really quickly. I get it. That's good to base these measurements on the largest-ish element, or then go to smaller parts. Yes, and it's good to find some larger element, and then go to smaller things, because if everything here is in the right place, then it's easy to add the smaller things on top of it. Right? If you base it on some small thing, then you have to draw that little small thing before you get to some of the larger elements on the sketch there. Like, do you do digital drawings or do you stick to traditional? I do digital. I will say most of what I do in digital, what I do in physical informs what I then do in digital. So I would strongly recommend anyone consider sketching to not, like, interested in doing sketching as some kind of career, like some job where sketching is part of that job. I would not recommend going digital first. There are just some things you learn with physical and those limitations, but also that mistake of, right, I can't control Z right now, I can't undo this. It's like if I make a mistake, it's there on the page. It's going to make that mistake cost a bit more in terms of costing me time. But I'm going to remember it, and I'm going to, like, try and not make that mistake again. Versus if you can control Z, you're not going to have any sort of record on the page of, like, that mistake you made. Oh my god. This is looking pretty bad. So I'm trying to add more details, but I haven't really figured them out right here. So right there's the question of, what parts do I pick and do smaller or larger? Yeah, so like I base this off the tires, because like vehicles are typically based off tires, because tires are often a very standard size. You can change tires on a vehicle, or you can put put larger tires, but overall it's based on a fairly standard size, so it's much easier than to extrapolate from the rest of it of how big this vehicle is, right? So if we know that this tire is 20 inches, which I don't know, is 20 inches, then it's very easy to then go look at, from that, oh, well then if the tire is 20 inches in diameter, then, and the bike is 3.5 tires large, then 3.5 times 20 makes it 100 inches in length. We can then go figure out how tall this is by how many tires tall it is, and again, extrapolate the height of the of the motorcycle from that. So that's what's nice about tires, is that there's this like consistent measurement you can do. I think something else that's going on here is I'm drawing kind of small, and we're getting really close to it, so it looks kind of scratchy, so we can zoom out and just make that look a little better. I can also jump over to a bigger pool, like the marker, and let's go with a slightly darker one, like a 3. So I can go with a slightly bigger one there. Come back to that side view and work on some of those details, because now I feel good about the sort of elements I have to break the form down, but I want to add more detail to that. So let's go back to one of these side views from earlier. Yeah, actually this one looks like a kind of a low resolution now. Let's find a better side view, a higher resolution one. It's not that small, but still doesn't look that good. This one looks better. It does look better. Isn't it hard to draw and talk at the same time? Oh yeah, it's definitely hard. That's a little bit why I think this one's not too not working out too well. But the next thing is, like, with practice, it becomes less effort. So the reason why it's a little hard to draw and sketch at the same time for this motorcycle is because I'm trying to do some specific things. If I was just like making up a design, I think it'd be a lot easier. Because, well, it'd be harder to tell if I messed up because you don't know if I messed up because I made up that design. Again, that's back to that practice, right? When you've been doing something for a long enough time, you don't have to devote as much of your attention to it. It doesn't mean not to devote any attention to it. Again, so if I'm specifically trying to do a certain type of design, if I'm specifically trying to capture a design on paper, then yes, it can get hard. But I logged on right now and turned this on because I didn't want to just sit here alone with my thoughts sketching. I want to just show people my process as I was sketching, see what questions people had as I was sketching. So I think it was worth the trade-off of maybe, again, a slightly less polished sketch immediately, but then again getting these little questions and from people that are challenging me in a good way. It's good to be challenged to what people want to know about when it comes to sketching or drawing. Hello from the US to Russia. What time? Good morning, good evening, good morning to you in Russia, good evening from us here in the US. Is it snowing where you are in Russia? And what is the weather like in Brazil? I'm very curious about that. So now, right, with this, I paid a little more attention to some of the smaller details, locking them in there. And so maybe the next time that I go to sketch the whole thing in 3D, it'll make a bit more sense. And we'll go ahead and add a lot more detail to this little one right here. So let's again zoom in on it and add that detail with this. I just said I'd use a larger tool, but we'll stick to the small one here as I try and add a bit of detail to it. What is closest to us, or what has nothing obstructing it? This piece right here. This right there, something. Right, so now, because I have all these big proportions down on the page, I can slowly add details in there, and I'm not trying to copy. I mean, I'm referencing the thing I'm looking at, but I'm not trying to copy it because I know with want to do this with a certain amount of speed, I'm not going to be able to sit here and get every little detail down perfectly, but I can get enough down, and I can just fudge a few of the details, but they're the dominant larger ones that I'm putting in there. So kind of going back and forth between a part component that is in front, between the component that is in the back. So what time is in Russia? It's 6:53. What pen are you using? I am using a Radiograph Koei Noir. I like it because it is a metal tip, and so the metal tip will never wear down. You just fill them up by pulling this thing out here and refilling it that way. So the pen costs about like $30 US, so it's very expensive for a pen. I mean, the next pen down is like this Copic Multiliner, which costs about $10 US, and then we can go down to here, and like this costs about like $5 US. But this one's not refillable. So once you mess this one up, once you either mess up your tip or run out of ink, it's done. So it's $5, and then you're never getting it back, and it's trash. This one is refillable. You can pull out this thing back here and put a new one in, and you can change the nib up top right there. So that makes it less wasteful in terms of being able to refill those, but you still have a cartridge as you're refilling. This one, again, all you're doing is replacing the ink every single time. So again, in the long run, it will save you money, but in the short run, it is a big investment. Always go for less expensive things when you're starting out. Don't buy the most expensive thing just because you see someone using it, because you don't know if if you like it, if you enjoy it. So start with a less expensive thing, and then I'm telling you, it's a waste to throw it away, but it also might be a waste to invest a bunch of money when you're not sure about it. And then when you're more sure about it, then put the money into it. But I really like it because it's refillable. You do have to move it a little slower sometimes to let that ink come out, and you have to hold it more vertical to let the ink come out. But those are trade-offs I'm willing to work with for this pen. How to make the balance between fundamentals as self-taught artists, or how to go from one fundamental to another. It's tough being self-taught. I would not call myself self-taught by any means. I went to school to learn this and to do this. It's definitely possible if you are a driven and dedicated person to be self-taught. It is the harder thing to do, and the thing I tell all my students is not to go out and do the hardest thing at first. Like break it off and break it down into smaller and smaller chunks so that it's not as challenging or as difficult as it could be. Make it easy for yourself. So you're asking, I guess, hearing my response to your question about breaking things down into smaller chunks is, we want to do the fancier, more fun things like rendering and design and whatnot at first, but if you don't have some of the fundamentals down, if you don't have a sense of good sense of perspective, if you don't have a good sense of proportion, it's going to be hard to do good designs. But if you don't have some design, you might not be able to practice rendering. So you if you're self-taught, you kind of have to do this balance between small little D here. This balance between switching back and forth between studying different fundamentals and practicing different fundamentals. But I cannot recommend enough going someplace, and especially now that things are online, right? We got someone from Brazil here, we got someone from Russia here right now in the room, and so you can get a lesson from anybody. Almost any. It's possible to get a lesson from anybody, and then within that, so you don't have to be restricted to where they live. Now you might then be restricted between how much they cost to get that lesson from them, but getting a lesson is going to help so much in just making the process go by faster. And speed is not the only goal, but definitely with some of the foundation things, because things are literally right or wrong. Perspective is right or wrong. There's no getting around it, and it might be hard to check that on your own. So if you just have a class and someone is showing you, and then someone is looking at your work and correcting you, it can be frustrating. But again, it's more like math. where it's like, okay, you checked my work, this is wrong, and now I'm going to go work on it and improve it for the next time. So yeah, I mean, I'd recommend it because I went to school and it worked out well for me. If you're not concerned about time, then you can take your time and learn on your own. And there's a lot of things that you'll eventually figure out. It's just going to school, going to a class will help you figure it out faster, because there's someone there again just to sort of check your work and point out the things that you might eventually realize that you have incorrect. But in the meantime, you just don't see it because you're working hard, and it's hard to see what's right in front of you sometimes when you're working on stuff like that. And speaking of not seeing stuff that's right in front of us, I can't exactly see what's going on here. So I'm going to draw lots of little doodads and components kind of in there, and then some dark spots to hint at detail and mechanics that I can't entirely see myself. How long do you sketch or draw every day? I probably sketch every day. Do I always sketch to this detail? No. Like sometimes I'm just like sketching in my notebook, writing down ideas, and I definitely don't even sketch them to this level, right? I do not sketch at this level all the time, every single day. When I teach, I sketch, and in that sense, I'm sketching to a certain level. But if I had to put a time to it, I'd say on average, just to make it easy, an hour a day, which is not enough. It's just enough to like maintain, but it's not enough to like get better. So if you want to get better, you definitely got to put in more than an hour a day. Whether it's sketching or anything else, but if we're talking about sketching, again, I think you got to put in more than an hour a day to get better. Oh, that's off the page. You got to put in more than an hour a day. All right, so looking at this thing, we went from a very loose sketch over here to some 3D sketches. And as I was going to those 3D sketches, I was trying to add more and more. One moment, let me take a drink of some tea. As I was putting in those 3D sketches, I was trying to get more and more details, but I was realizing I didn't understand how things came together. So it's time to go back to my 2D sketch and look at it. Now I got this awkward space in the page over here. Maybe I could draw the bicycle really tall right there, or I can draw like some component of it. Let's see, go back to the references that I have over here and find some component to look at closer. But then while we search for that, how often do I sketch? Every day. And I'm saying on average an hour. I mean, when I'm teaching, I'm sketching over people's work, so it's not the same as actually doing my own sketches. Part of the reason I'm streaming right now is to encourage me to sketch more, so that I'm trying to get in the habit of streaming at some consistent times. So I'm just playing around with finding times that work for me, and then also that's work not just for me but for people kind of tuning in. And Sunday night for me works pretty well, it seems, because then it'll develop a habit of sketching for fun, but also with that little bit of pressure of sketching it for an audience of people. I'll be encouraged to sketch better, because I could definitely just sketch for myself and not do that great of a job and say, okay, that's fine, it's just for me. And that's fine if you want to stay at a certain level, but I still want to get better. So I want that little bit of encouragement, that little bit of push. So that's why I'm sketching live right now, is to be encouraged to do a good job, a better job than I might have otherwise. Which is back to, again, I'm not trying to like push anyone to go to school, but it is, again, that thing that provides just that little bit of extra push to be in a class. And so if you can't be in a class, right, if you can't afford a class, then if you can find a group of people, that you can look at each other's work. It's not the same as having an instructor, but having some critique from a set of people who know what you're trying to do. Because if, I'm doing these right here, and I'm just warming up the sketching bicycle so I can teach some people some tips about sketching them. But, if you came here and you looked at this and you're like, but Nathan, that's terrible. Like, none of them really look like the bicycle, the motorcycle. And that's like, well, you're not looking at this correctly, because this wasn't about, something super accurate. This is actually a warm-up. So maybe come back in like 2 or 3 pages later. So you have to sort of prompt people so they can give you the correct critique for your work. And that's a little bit of the challenge sometimes of sharing your work online, is that a like doesn't automatically say, it's a nice encouragement, but it doesn't, give you the feedback you might be looking for in how do I sketch this thing better? How do I do a better job at it? All right. So looking at the lamp here from some different angles is a nice way to fill out this side right there. Something looks off there. All right. Going back, where can I find more images of this headlamp from different views? Even this one here is kind of nice. So is it good to join our community if I can't afford college for critiques? Can I suggest any place? Where's a good place to go for critiques? That one I don't know, because I'm not really part of any online communities for critiques. I'll kind of open that question up to the few people in the audience if they go anywhere. You can you can start to build community yourself, and I mean, not like you have to start a forum or anything, but in terms of, like, say, posting your work online and on on Instagram or on ArtStation or something like that, and see if there's people who are regularly visiting your work and ask them for their opinion. So that's a way you can start to, again, build your own. It'll be slow. It's hard to get followers on any sort of medium, especially if you're looking for a specific kind of follower that can, again, give you some feedback. But that would be the starting point, and then you might meet someone who can point out to you some community online that you can go to. I've heard of, but don't know specifically any Discords. I'm not a big person on Discord myself, so I can't really point you anywhere specifically there, but that would be a nice place to start searching for some potential communities to build, to join. Again, I say build and join because you should do both. build in so much as, again, connecting with people that are like-minded. I mean, you're even, you're here right now, and there's some other people in the room. If you see someone asking some questions similar to you, just tell them, hey, I'd like to look at your work. I'd like to maybe get some feedback on mine, and maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't, but you just got to try. And back to what you're trying to do now, right, is kind of save money. If you don't have the money to go to college right now, you're gonna put in work, but you're gonna put in a different kind of work, right? You're putting in that work of connecting with people, and it can do exactly what you're talking about, which is save you some money to find more people. So what did I just say? I said Discord. I said like Instagram. Those would be like an ArtStation, depending on the type of art you're doing. Which is the next one? Instead, what kind of art are you doing? So where's a good place to sort of share it? I'm a product designer by trade, so I might also look at Behance, is where people put their portfolios. So that is a place where you could potentially get some critique from people. I see people sometimes, specifically ask other people for critiques. It's like they go on their Instagram and they say, hey, can you look at my work and give me a critique? And I don't know how well that works out. So I'm not saying don't do it. I don't know how it works or doesn't work. So that's why I can't 100% recommend that. But anything's worth a try, as long as you're being honest about it and not just trying to essentially promote yourself for this followers just for followers. I'm always overwhelmed with the detailed motorcycles at the engine and nuts and the bolts. How do you overcome that? Start with simple forms first, right? If you get this down, then you can again chop it up into, well, you see me just sketching this right here, right? Just the headlight cowling, right? So I've simplified that form over here, but now I'm exploring it a lot in many different ways over here. Right, I kept it really simple over here, but then later on I explored it in more detail right here. And again, even this one is not a perfect match to the actual motorcycle. It is pretty, it's nice, but it's not matching it perfectly, because I was going more for speed than for like 100% copying it. And even then, and even with that, I'm still looking at some fairly big forms. As I look at individual sections, then we can look at more and more details. But motorcycles are extremely difficult because they have all those mechanical components exposed. But again, turning them into bigger shapes at first, that's the number one thing. If you can turn a complex object into some simple shapes, it's going to make your life easier. Now, learning to do that is going to be difficult, and you're going to have to do a bunch of ways that fail and don't work. But putting the work in there is going to make it easier and easier to look at things and break them down to smaller and smaller pieces. And eventually, right, I don't even have a bolt in here. It's like some sort of connection piece, but it's still not even a bolt. So I'm not even at that level. Because also my sketches are really small, right? So by keeping them small, it's helped me to focus on those bigger forms. I said that this was going to be motorcycles and bicycles, so let's go look at bicycles right now. We're going to just close up all of these references, and I can go find more Harley references later on. And what is a nice bicycle? Nice bicycle. Specialized bikes. Let's go see what they have. Well, I do want a road bike. I don't want to do a mountain bike. I want to do a road bike. Road bike. So I'm just up here in the corner, just scrolling through some images, trying to find something I like. That's a little more difficult. than I wanted it to be. Because I want to find one bike. Well, let's look at this. Open link, a new tab. Specialized Venge. So, oh, that's a lot. It's like 10,000 pounds. But Specialized Venge. So let's go look that up. Specialized Venge. So I can find one bike and find many images of that same bike. Looks like there might be different models. So there was like a 54. Well, it's 2021. Let's look at the latest model. No, I don't like that. Doesn't look correct. Let's go with 54. Let's see what that does. All right, that works. We got a nice side view here. Look at that larger, and we're gonna move this aside from the motorcycles and start sketching some bicycles. Ooh, number 3 here is drying out. I do have some more ink, but to save time, I'm not going to fill up right now. I will. Do I have another 3? I have molding markers because I'm always running out and letting them go dry. So hopefully this 3 is not dry. That seems to have some ink in it. So just like with the motorcycle, let's draw it from a side view at first. We have our reference right there. The spacing is a bit tighter, so I'm just kind of eyeballing it. And oh, we have also the gear right here, overlapping back there. Comes into the fork right here. I mean, with a bicycle like this, what you really want to do is just get those points down and trace over. But since I'm doing everything by hand right now, we won't have any space to trace. Oh, that was easy. I mean, because there's so few well, there's lots of components if we look at the small things. Alright, so I started with the marker. We can add a little thickness to this as I keep going. Right, it gets a little wider right there, comes down over here, and let's get closer to this. So this kind of comes down right here. This kind of fatter piece right there into the fork right here. The gear down here. And leaving out lots of details in terms of trying to save myself some time. The rear fork over there, or sorry, stays. I think they are called stays for the bicycle. And then the seat up here. And then the handlebars here. A little indication of the brakes. Tire there. Tire there, a little loose. And not even going to bother drawing the connections between them. Oh, I should have grabbed what should we call it? Oh, the chain should actually be right here. That's unfortunate that I did that. Should have grabbed a circle guide for that. Would have helped it look better. But let's look at this thing from some different views now. Actually, the nice thing about how am I able to be okay with making ugly or wonky drawing? I'm able to be okay with it because I know it's not my last drawing, and I'm just gonna keep doing a bunch of sketches here. And I'm warming up. Like right now, what I'm doing is not something that I would do to present to someone to say, here's the best I can do. I'm out here right now, right, streaming this on YouTube. But I'm showing like my rough process of I haven't sketched a bicycle in a long time, and I am open to showing you all how bad my sketches are right now. I think that's something also towards the question that someone was asking earlier. Sorry, I'm reading the questions and not able to keep track between sketching and reading the questions of who said them exactly. So you might have been the one who asked it, but I think that's one of the challenges people have sometimes is like, you know, they want to show only their best work or what they're good at, but it prevents you from showing the work that you need to get a critique on, right? That you need to get feedback on. So I'm fine because I know I can do better than this, but also I don't need to be my best every single time, right? Right now, what my focus is studying, and in studying something, we don't do perfect every single time. There are like some little cheats we can do. Where's my big pen here? There's some little cheats we can do when we're sketching so that things look better, to kind of cover up, but like using a slightly thicker tool right here, but that's gonna cause some other problems, right? We're gonna lose detail compared to the smaller pen. So right, now so again, I think it's kind of looking better there, but I'm losing detail. You know, just draw a slightly better circle there, but now because of the way the pen laid down, this one ended up thicker than that, so I gotta clean it up, and like that's one way, right, to kind of cover up a little bit. But mostly, again, I'm okay because I've accepted that I'm just practicing right now, that I'm just warming up, and I think you don't have to show your warm-ups to anybody. You can just practice and oops, don't want to watch a video. You can just practice and not show anyone your practice. But it's helpful to show people your practice, to show the people that you're working on it. Yeah. So let's just keep going with this. This is a dry one. Wrong pen there. And because back to that, you know, that I know I can do better, is that I know I can do better, but I also know that better is going to take me a lot longer. So, and like right now, right, just to warm up and sketch bicycles, it's okay if they're not the best they could be for me. I spent like hours doing like single renderings of things so that they can look photoreal. But it's nice to know you can do it. But do I do it all the time? Absolutely not. Because it takes a long time, and I don't always take the time to do that. Right? Sometimes I just want to have fun and sketch. And well, that's what I'm trying to do right now. Though, I will say, sketching bicycles is not as fun as I thought it might be. But I'm only like 2 sketches into it, so maybe it's a little bit too early to judge. Because all like super thin lines, and with those super thin lines, it means that perspective and those mechanical bits, if it was tough for a motorcycle, oh man, it seems to be even tougher here for a bicycle. if I was designing a bicycle, I would probably just be sketching it in side view. Because that's the quickest way to play with some of the proportions there. But I don't want to do just that. Ooh, this is looking too big. But I don't want to do just that. So I'm looking at it in 3D. Again, giving myself an additional challenge. Trying to push myself to study some of the forms that are going on in here. Again, I always, right now, the bicycle gets into a little bit of trouble as we get into this small details right there. Particularly because it's really hard to understand these forms as they get small. Right, so it's hard to even cheat the perspective, to fake the perspective, because I just can't even see what's going on in there. So between a bicycle and a motorcycle, realizing I find motorcycles a bit easier. That was a loose sketch. Oof, I didn't really set up my perspective too well. Perspective seems tricky. Yeah, perspective is tricky, but in particular for these bicycles, because of these small details. Let's find one in a more dramatic perspective than a solid angled view there. This is a little extreme for this perspective here, but I think it might be good as far as like kind of doing some of the setup that I was doing with the motorcycle before. Right, so when I say motorcycle before, right, so we have this, and we're looking at it, we're looking down at it, and we can, so like the vantage point is back there somewhere. And what that allows me to do is say, well, vertical is right here. And this line goes out like that, so this one must be angled a little bit. This one must be angled a little bit. This one is angled a little bit. And especially a little bit of distortion on those in terms of like going to the mind axis. Actually, I need to distort that even more. And then this one right here. And we have this doesn't go straight up, it goes back at an angle. Again, perspective I think is really difficult for something like this because it has to be so precise because there's so little to work from here. Like when I say there's so little, there's like a bicycle has very few things to distract us with, so we can't really hide inaccurate perspective too much. We can hide a lot more with a motorcycle. We hide even more with, say, like a car. So it doesn't quite work out as great for like a quick sketch. But also if we are selective about the angle we do it at, now I can get some perspective here right on the handle. I keep sketches. I don't throw them away. One thing you should be doing in saving your sketches is saving your sketches, but also dating your sketches, which is to say, like, you know, when did you do it, so you can look back at your work and appreciate how much you've improved over time. So save your sketches, go back, and look at how much you've improved. I mean, don't look back in like 2 weeks. Look back in 2 months if you've been practicing a lot. If you haven't been practicing a lot, then go back in like 6 months. But yeah, going back to look at your sketches. Oh, that seat should be a little smaller there. A little smaller there. Go back in a few months and look at your work. If you've been practicing a lot, then you can go back and look sooner. But if you've been practicing, you should see some improvement, right? It's all like those before and after of, like, before I started weightlifting and then after I started weightlifting. Before I went on a diet and after I went on a diet. You should be able to see some change, like those advertisements. Can you sketching skill be applied to illustration? Yes. I mean, the basics can be applied to anything you're doing. When I say the basics, I'm talking about like perspective. No matter what you're doing, perspective applies. Even if you're doing some kind of how do I say this? Some sort of style of sketching, and it's like some distorted perspective. Even though then you still need to know what the perspective is if you're distorting that perspective. And even if you are sketching and right, so that's kind of interesting there. That seat got a little chunky. Even if you are illustration, comics, entertainment design, gotta know perspective, gotta know how to do good line quality, how to come up with different ideas. There's definitely a place for style within all of those things, but the basics, the foundations don't really change. So no matter what you're doing, yeah, you should learn about those foundations. Tips for young artists: practice a lot, but also have fun. And so there was a question earlier how long I've been sketching. I said like since 2. One of the things I did when I was growing up is I literally just copy comic books. I wasn't trying to sell them or make anything out of it. Instagram didn't exist at the time, so there was no posting it online. But I would literally just buy a comic book and not trace it, but I would like draw the entire page that I saw. Why did I do it? Because I just enjoyed it. So if you practice something that you're enjoying, you're going to have a lot of fun with it and keep doing it. So have fun, enjoy yourself. No. And I'm realizing I'm not enjoying drawing this bicycle. But what I think I can do to make it a little more fun, because once you have the basic proportion down in side view, it's about looking at some of the details. Is we can either look at the handlebar, because there's some form there, or I can look at the seat, because otherwise drawing all these like thin little things isn't too much fun, and it's also difficult when I don't understand exactly what's going on with the form in the seat or the form in the handlebar. So I'm trying to find some handlebar. Let's go look up handlebar. Venge 54 handlebar. See if we can find some close-ups of the handlebar. All right, like bull horns or something. So that's closer, right there. So yeah, I mean, I was also just talking about tips for young artists. So you tell me if that helped you or not. If it didn't, say you'd like to hear me say a little bit more, and try and elaborate on what I just said. But mostly what I think I said is have fun, but also practice. Because if you're not having fun, you're not going to practice, and if you're not practicing, you're not going to get better. There is a trade-off there, that it's probably not fun to do perspective because you're going to mess up so many times. So with that, I would say have a goal. right? So some of with the foundational elements like perspective, have a goal, right? So, and take that goal and break it down to smaller and smaller steps. Which one's more correct? They're both wrong. Break it down into smaller and smaller pieces, so that you're not trying to do it all at once. You're just saying like, all right, I'm going to take the next 2 months to learn about 1 point perspective. That way, you're not sitting there and beating yourself up for not understanding perspective in 1 week, or even understanding all perspectives in 1 month, right? So you're just gonna say, I'm gonna work on this one thing for a while. You're not saying you're gonna master it. You're not saying you're gonna get good enough that you can be teaching it. You're not saying all this other stuff. You're just saying, I'm just gonna work on this thing for 2 months and try to make as much improvement as I can with 1 point perspective. And now, if you save your sketches, right, you can go back and look at them and look at how much better you got in those 2 months you are focused on working on perspective. 1 point perspective, not 2 point, just one little thing at a time. Any other tips that I have? I mean, I want to say take advice, but it's hard to know where to take advice from. It's hard to know when you're young what is good advice and what is bad advice, because you're definitely going to hear different things from different people. So, listen to everybody, but you don't have to do everything everyone says. But listen, be open, say and try different things out. Because I would be mistaken to tell you to prejudge anyone's advice, and it's going to be hard for you to figure out which advice is good or bad. What if you try to have fun, but you keep messing up and it stops being fun, therefore you stop drawing for a while? How do you get motivated to get back to drawing? That is a great question. I gotta think about that one for a moment while I search for some new handlebar positions here and delay answering that good question. That's okay, View. How do you make it fun again when it stopped being fun for a while? How do you make it fun again when you stop being fun? Well, for one thing, I gotta agree with you. Taking breaks, there's nothing wrong with taking breaks, because if you don't, you're gonna burn yourself out, and then again, that is not going to be fun because you're not enjoying yourself. So taking breaks, there's nothing wrong with that. But how do you get back on it? I mean, you give yourself a different challenge. Like right now, I have not been sketching for myself that often. Right? I've been sketching mostly for other people. So this right now, streaming, is my fun. It is my motivation. It's trying to just the sketching part is not new for me, right? The sketching part is not new for me right now. The streaming part is new. The streaming has nothing to do with sketching, but it's just something to get me motivated, because sometimes trying something new can just make something more interesting, even if it's not directly related to that thing. And sometimes it makes it more difficult, because again, sketching and talking can be difficult. But again, it's something that I said I'm open to trying out that challenge. And I'm also hoping that as more and more people tune in to watch me sketch, it starts to give them motivation to sketch, and so then that'll get me inspired, seeing more people sketching because I'm sketching. It also might get me motivation from like the questions people ask and wanting to answer them, because I like the challenge of answering those questions. So I guess in sort of summarizing what I just said right there, which is like sometimes, again, give yourself a new challenge, right? The new challenge doesn't have to be about sketching, because that can make it frustrating to say, sketching wasn't fun and now I'm not having any fun with it. And you give yourself a new challenge, say, well, now I'm going to give myself a challenge of getting better with my perspective in a month. And again, but you just stopped because it was so frustrating because you kept making mistakes. Well, I'm coming back, I'm sketching again, and I'm just trying to have fun. But by focusing on this other thing that I'm doing right here, it can take my attention away from the part that was not fun, or away from the part that I was having trouble overcoming, which is kind of just sometimes sketching for myself, taking the time for myself to do it, and also give me even like a little motivation from, if I'm able to find a time to sketch and more people are tuning in, there's going to be a certain obligation that I feel to sketch for people. Because, Nathan said he was going to sketch every Sunday night, and I haven't said that yet, but I'm searching for a time that seems like it's going to work for me to sketch, and just can share that sketching with people as I sketch for fun, because most of my sketching is for others, not for me. So I'm searching for that time for me to sketch for fun. And it's a distraction from, that sketching was kind of not as fun as it used to be, because it was always just like doing work. So give yourself a slightly distracted challenge to motivate yourself to sketch. Maybe, and you're going to come back and just play with colors as an alternative approach to sketching. Maybe you were trying to sketch cars before, and cars can be really difficult, so you're going to say, you know what, I'm going to come back, I'm going to sketch, and I'm going to sketch dogs, just because maybe you got a new puppy, and you're like, I'm just going to sketch this puppy and have fun with that for a while. And it just gets you into it. And again, as this way, what is the form doing there? It just gets you back into it. That's what happened there. Sorry, this form is really confusing me right here. But it gets you back into it in a way that is like, again, not the reason you stopped, right? Not the thing that you got frustrated about. So there's just some motivation there to try it out again. Which is probably another reason why I'm streaming right now, because sometimes the advice you give other people is the advice you should be taking yourself. But it takes you telling someone else to realize, oh yeah, I should be doing that. Or maybe realizing it's what you were doing, but you didn't know it until you tried to tell someone else about it. Right, which is I'm sketching, but giving myself a little bit of a distraction so that I'm not so focused on the sketching, so I'm not so worried about it being a bad sketch, because I'm not gonna frame any of these sketches, but like I'm not really gonna frame any of my design sketches, but with enough practice they're gonna get better. So if we go back and look at what I'm doing right now, and look at what I do, say in, let's just say 2 months from now, if I'm consistent about this, we should see an improvement in the sketches. Topic to topic will change. Bicycles aren't providing a certain challenge to me, but overall, again, we should see an improvement as I keep sketching new things. Or at least me get smarter and pick things that are a little bit easier to sketch. There's a little bit of space left. Let's check out the seat. Venge handlebar, Venge seat. Alright, so this is nice because it's a big fat form right there, so that should be pretty quick. Oh, quick. Yeah, I don't know what the word I was looking for was exactly. Yeah, bicycles. What I've learned tonight, bicycles are difficult, motorcycles are easier relative to bicycles. And why is that? And for the exact reason that motorcycles are kind of challenging, is that they're all these small components. Did I say bicycle right there? The exact reason that motorcycles are difficult for some people, because they have so many small components, a bicycle then is even more difficult because it is even more smaller components sort of making it up. But that was fun. This bike seat right here was fun because it was a fairly successful in a short period of time compared to how difficult the rest of the bike was. So that's nice. So there's another answer to what do you do when you're not motivated. Go back to something that you're good at. I mean, specifically like with drawing, right? Go back to something that you really enjoyed, that you're already good at. It's a reminder that you can do it. That's possible. It just takes time. So go back, do something you were good at, build up your confidence again, and then get back on that horse and try and find how you're going to do that difficult, frustrating thing. So 2 things I have to do here, right, in terms of good practice, is this is the Venge, Specialized Venge. With a Z and S. Z. And this is, I have it labeled as the live wire right there, but the time it is for me here in the US 2021-03-14. And let's get this one on the same date, 2021-03-14. Perfect. All right. Thank you for joining today, this evening, asking questions, challenging me to answer them. Like I said, I'm looking for some time that makes sense to be doing this on the regular, so let me know what works for you. I can take it into consideration as I find a good time that works for me as well. Yeah, have a good week, everybody, and just practice. It doesn't have to be perfect. They don't all have to be beautiful. Just keep sketching.